And it was from someone I didn't even know. And we ended up, he picked me up and we went in his car. We traveled way outside of the city to like a total rural looking area with country roads and bushes and dirt pull-offs and turnouts. Nothing but dirt and trails. No trees at all, just all flat for as wide as you could see. And we parked out there. And it all seemed normal to me. We walked a mile passing all these fields and paths and dirt roads that seemed to lead to nowhere. And we went up to this area where people were just milling all about in front. It was huge. It was like a massive super mall. I would describe it as like the size of one of these giant casinos, if not larger. I would say it was a super mall. And there was all kinds of stuff in it. So he and I enter in. And I remember I was walking through a restaurant. And everybody in there was crazy. There was a shooting range in there. There was people conspiring like over to the left and the right. But everything seemed to be under control as long as I kept walking. When I went through the kitchen, there was I had grabbed 2 knives. And just stick with me on this. I know this is going to sound strange. They're actually knives I own. One is a big carving knife that you use in the kitchen on a cutting board, and the other one is a new paring knife we have to peel things, etc. And I put one in the small knife in my left hand and the larger knife in my right with my hand on it, and I was walking with both hands in my pockets. As I came out of the kitchen, there were bars, there were just a bunch of worldly things, and we worked our way through, him and I, all the way up to these escalators. There was 4 sets of escalators, and they were all coming down. And there was an elderly lady, maybe 70 years old, off to the left, and everybody was going up the escalator as it came down. And I remember telling her, I said, "Ma'am," I said, we're getting too old for this. I used to do that when I was a kid. I'd go up the down escalator, and I said, "Why don't you come over here?" Because everybody just was like ignoring us. And so I said, I'm like, "In the name of Jesus, help us," because it was like 6 flights going against the escalator motion of downward. And so all of a sudden in the middle, there formed this Greengrass Staircase. Man, this just came. I pray that I can do this in 15 minutes. Watch this. I'll give you an example. And no, this is not a Led Zeppelin video. There's this one image I remember that I used at my mom's memorial. Like this. Just like that. And it's because it's green, made out of grass. And her and I began to walk up, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that's nice, man. The Lord sure helped us, and we're going up. And she's just ignoring me as if I didn't exist. I'm thinking, that's kind of cold. You know what I mean? Like, she would have been able to make it, except for this one path in the middle. And I helped her, and she just ignored me. So we end up at the top, and it's another huge mall-type environment. You know, 2 stories open, and stores everywhere. And I've lost the guy that took me there. He's way far ahead of me. And so I began to look for him, and I began to ask people for directions to this movie theater, and no one will tell me. And after walking about 10 minutes through all kinds of different mall-type stores, with no one helping me, I made it. And I walked in the theater, and I was at the exit door. And the exit door was blocked by boxes. And I remember someone trying to open it, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? You're going to really go out that door that's blocked with boxes? And so I went out the same way I came in. This is where it gets really interesting. When I came out, and ignore that address, please. That address is not relevant to this dream at all. That's 1648. I'll explain that in a minute. When I came out, everything had changed. All I did was exit the theater's doors the same way I came in. Everything had changed. There were people who were threatening me. There were groups of people all over that were doing the most evil, heinous things. I suddenly felt threatened, and I walked and I knew I had protection on me, and a lot of people were getting beat down, like the knockout game. Everyone I looked at had evil and evil in him. And I started to go back in the movie theater because I felt like I'd be safer in there. And this guy, a younger guy, he had a uniform similar to this. He goes running up the stairs. You ever been in a movie theater and there's like a second area that goes up? Like, he had a uniform on exactly like this, okay? But he's young. He had blonde hair and he was probably about 20. And he said, "I'm Senator McCarthy, I'm Senator McCarthy, I'm Senator McCarthy." And he had a huge sword in his hand. And I began to pray for those people. They were in huge danger. And I remember saying, someone should get security. This dude was about ready to bloodlet that whole area, screaming he was Senator McCarthy, whom I know nothing about. Remember, history, geography was not my thing. It simply was not my thing. I walked out of history class in 9th grade and said, I don't want to learn any of this, and never went back to that, and yet somehow still graduated a year early. And that's all from God, because I don't know how I did that, but I did. I walked out of history, just got up and walked out the first day. So I don't know anything about this Senator MacArthur, but I do now. And so I go back out the front door of the movie theaters, and inside I'm just praying for everybody that's about to receive whatever's happening in there by this maniac. And I pass through all these heinous, evil, even murderous things, and I get out to the front door, and I'm thinking, if this guy's my ride home, if I can't find him, I'm in trouble, and I'm broke. And I was very, very thirsty, and I was trying to borrow $5 to get a drink. And there was a whole bunch of Oasis type places in there to drink whatever you want, but I didn't have no money. And so I figured, well, if this guy's smart and he knows we're lost and he's truly my friend, he's going to meet me out front, and he's not there. So I began to walk back the way I came, and everything had changed. It was like a cruise. It was like an American cruise. I want to try and get a visual for you to see what I'm kind of had seen. People were just cruising everywhere. Not a cruise ship, but I find that interesting. Like a car cruise, like this. I mean, they were everywhere, but it wasn't black and white. It was in color. And like there was a drop top, for instance, that was rolling like 6 people deep. And they were up to no good at all. And I remember I had my 2 knives. And someone said, "Aren't you afraid?" And I said, "No." It was a female. And I said, "No, and you shouldn't be anyway." And I gave her my small paring knife out of my left hand. Now I'm walking with one hand in my right pocket with this big, huge knife. And I really don't feel threatened at all. But the people are crazy. I mean, they're doing the most evil things. 4 calls rolled by me, and they turned right off onto this dirt trail. The area was the same looking, exact area looked the same as dirt and trails and paths, and they cut me off. And then this white Mercedes-Benz with the drop top, I remember, went by, and I was in I don't know how to tell you how evil this world felt and what the people were saying and how they looked, as if their DNA had changed, their entire nature had been changed to evil. And so I go to the area, and there's no car there at all. It's just people harassing me in this type of environment you see right here. And so I figured, well, he's not here where the car was. His car is not here. The only thing I can do is go back to the front of the movie theater and hope to find somebody to get home. And I get there, and he's out in front in the parking lot, nowhere near the front door. And I told him, I said, "Man, I was worried." And he's laughing and laughing like it was all funny and all a big joke. Let me get a sip of water. Remember, I don't even know this guy. I tell you what, he acted like a clown, though, whoever he was. But it was a dream. So I asked him if I can borrow some money to go get something to drink. and he's just ignoring me. I'm like, please, man. I didn't want to beg. I've never been one to ask people for money, ever. It was hard for me to ask, but I had to. And he opens up his wallet, and it's all empty. It's full of papers. No money or at all, just papers. And he pulls one of these papers out, and he shows it to me. And it's a state-registered guard card, they call it. And I can see the name. I can see the address. Right now, the first name was Timothy. That's what we're going to go into right now. And I asked him, he keeps saying, this is fake. This is fake. This is fake. And just like this. I can tell you right now that the name that was on the first name, Timothy, the last name, I'm not going to share. Matter of fact, that's what mine used to look like in the 90s, 38, 357, and 9. Then it later was changed to 40 and 45, and I dropped all three of those calibers because you have to pay so much. This is a firearm card. You have to pay so much for every caliber, twice a year. Well, anyway, he said, this is false. I said, well, that would be a crime because you have to do a background check and all that. It can't be false. And he just keeps talking about how it's false, the security guard card to protect people. And I said, well, let me see it then, and he's not giving me any money for anything to drink. And I'm wondering why he even left me in the first place and abandoned me there. And I look at the guard card and I see the name and the address, and I figured, well, then let's go take it over. So we start walking towards the front door of the super mall area again, casino, whatever it was. And there's a security guard standing there. And I started to give it to him and tell him, look, we really need to look into this. And he was the only one there in the whole dream that was offering to help me. And he took it, and then I woke up. And I came out here at 5:30 in the morning, and I looked up the address. I'm not going to show it. Fear of my safety, fear of retaliation. No, I don't want to do any harm or damage to this business. But the four numbers added up to 2 sevens, I'll tell you that. For example, like 2552. That was not the address, but the first two numbers equaled 7, the second two numbers equaled 7. It was in West Sacramento. Now, if I panned off here, you would see an Iranian, and this is not about race, this is not about color, this is not about anything like that. I'm not a racist. The Lord says to love everybody. It's an Iranian food store. And it has Arabic writing on the front and the phone number. I could even call them. I just found it surreal. And that's when I asked the Lord, why do I allow it to? And he said, well, knowledge of good and evil. And so do you understand this is symbolic? Iran, the United States, World War III, the Great Tribulation. And so I looked up Senator McCarthy. I'd never heard of him. And he started, I'm going to put a link to this. He started this huge thing about spies being in our government, and I guess homosexuality, and he was from Besadia. He died in Besadia, Maryland. See all this information and knowledge right here. And I learned more about this person than I ever wanted to. He was a captain in the United States Marine Corps. He got the Distinguished Flying Cross, but it appears his whole history was about trying to expose other spies in our country. It's called McCarthyism. I know nothing about this stuff. I know I should. Anti-communist activities. It says, today the term is used more generally in reference to demagogic, reckless, unsubstantiated accusations, public attacks on the character of patriotism, political opponents. He was born in Wisconsin on a farm. He was a lawyer, and then he was a judge, and then he went into the Marine Corps, World War II, and he ran for Senate in 1946. And then he went into the State Department, and he was never able to prove. He was looking at this, members of the Communist Party and members of a spy ring. So we have Russia, Iran, and the United States. He was preceded by Harry S. Truman, I believe. And it says that he was various charges of communism, communist sympathies, disloyalty, homosexuality. So what he would do was he would just call out all these other people to further himself, and they called it the anti-homosexual witch hunt called Red Scare. And then and Lavender Scare, you see this? And then I began to, I'll put a links to both of these things. And so then I began to wonder what all this meant. And the Lord told me it was Great Tribulation, World War III, and a change in our free will status in some sort. And certain people will be protected. I'm not going to add to that or take away from it. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Peace.